goes live in 2 minutes. Lynn Cullen live in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Oh, yeah, here we are again. I'm strangely detached today. I don't know what else to say. I'm detached. I'm detached from it all. This probably means my blood pressure is in good shape, and I'm probably in a very nice place, but not a good place to be a talk host. So here we are. It's a Wednesday, I believe. Yeah, the 23rd of March. There were some more primaries last night, although we're not paying much attention at the moment, I guess. Why is it that we can only pay attention to one thing at a time? What's that about? And Bernie Sanders beat Hillary Clinton, took 2 states to her 1, and got more delegates than she. The count I'm looking at has him just 300 delegates down from her, but I guess he'd have to win everything else and then some. It's over, but he still continues, even though it's sort of mathematically almost over. The people who are working for him, his campaign is still filled with passion and going gangbusters. So that's interesting. Donald Trump, not surprisingly, took Arizona, and Ted Cruz took the state next door, Utah, and Trump came in 3rd. Those Mormons don't get Trump, not a bit. So anyway, both front runners, both Clinton and Trump, have not sealed things up, and I don't know. Both still could. One probably will, and I don't know. And I'm strangely, as I said today, I just sort of don't. It's not that I don't care. I think there's an emotional vacation of sorts I seem to be taking from all of it. There's other things happening, of course. We spoke for a bit about Brussels yesterday. That ended up devolving into talking about hybrid cabbage. Guys, I don't know. This is a complicated world, ain't it? Something else. And the only thing I can think of that would be my advice to anybody, young, old, and then some, is calm down. That's mostly be vigilant, but can you be vigilant and still in a state of relative calm? Somewhere, whatever that little, however you balance that seesaw, that would be, to me, the way to go. Well, I guess I'll just wade in. Okay, let's talk about Cuba for a while. So I thought the president handled that whole thing very well, even the limp wrist thing that we talked about somewhat yesterday. That was handled well. Can you imagine how you got to immediately know this is not a good picture, and you have to talk about being vigilant and on your toes. At the same time, you've got this big, grinning, beautiful smile on your face. Wow. Jeez. So, by all accounts, I think a successful trip. Of course, not if you're a Republican. If you're a Republican, you're beside yourself. Calls from all Republicans for him as soon as the bombs went off in Brussels to pack his bags, jump on Air Force One, and come back to Washington. My response to that is, why? What? He's the president of Belgium now? Why? There are terrorist bombings happening literally on a daily basis. The president of the United States is supposed to stop anything he's doing the minute there is an attack. If the attack is in the United States of America, which I believe is his bailiwick, yeah. If the attack is in Europe, he did the right thing. He immediately called the head of that country. He immediately, I'm sure, talked to all of his security people. He did what he had to do, and he stayed where he was, because he's able to do more than one thing at a time. And then the Republicans seem to be suggesting that Brussels was his fault. What? What is he? What is he? Some kind of Superman? No matter what happens anywhere in the world, if it goes wrong, it's his fault. If it goes right, he gets no credit. So anyway, it's annoying. It's just so annoying. This response that you immediately freak out and respond to a terrorist attack like that gives the terrorists so much power. If terrorists, by striking over here, can make the president of the United States jump over there when you haven't even targeted his country, man, those guys are pretty powerful, aren't they? This constant overreaction by politicians who thrive on frightening Americans is, to me, the height of irresponsibility and the height of stupidity. Stupidity in that they just don't get it. They don't get what ISIS is trying to do and the strategy that ISIS is employing. And when they overreact, as they invariably do, they play right into ISIS's hands. How come I know that? How come anybody who takes any time to say, what the hell is happening here? Why would these people think that they can get anywhere killing innocent people all over the world. What the hell do they think they're doing? Well, a lot of stuff has been written about it. It's quite clear what they're doing. Their strategy is very open. Their end game, where they're heading, how they're going to do it. This started from Osama bin Laden. They've picked up and ratcheted up since him. But the idea, and it was an idea that would take time, but you begin to sow fear in your enemies' countries. That'd be us in Europe. And that fear results then in those countries changing. They start limiting their civil rights. They start becoming unwelcoming to Muslims. Islamophobia begins to bloom. That's what ISIS wants. Why is it so hard to get your head around that these particular Muslims who are perpetrating this want us to hate Muslims? Can't you get that? Because then that works for them. They want to send these poor, wretched refugees running from their carnage in their home countries, running for safety in Europe, and then being turned away. They want them to be turned away. They want them to see that the West hates their guts, that the West is against them, that the only thing they have is the caliphate. Every time we overreact, we are recruiting for ISIS. Why don't these idiots understand it? That we've got to be cooler and smarter. And instead, you've got these Republicans especially. Just absolutely, you can't get better recruiters for a fight against the demonic West. You can't get better recruiters than Donald Trump or Ted Cruz or even John Kasich, who says that Obama must come home immediately. It's just out. I can't believe he's down there at a baseball game. We're supposed to suspend our lives because these sons of bitches have done what they do again. The last thing you do is suspend your normal life. The last thing you do. I said to nobody in particular when I walked into my living room yesterday, I guess I said it to the cat. She was lying on the couch. I said, why are people so afraid all the time? What is it about humans? Is it just rigged into... How come I'm not afraid all the time? Why would you live in a state of such fear, in a state of feeling like you're constantly being threatened? And that's what fuels all these angry people we see in our domestic politics. Fear. And then you got the guys who like toying with it, ratcheting it up. And then when they got you on the run, terrified, they say, I will save you. Come with me. It works too. These strategies that you see being played by ISIS, by the Republican candidates, they work, these strategies. There's a reason they're employed. I could never understand, how does terrorism work? Why would, I remember years ago when it started, in the 70s especially, when it started, when the PLO first started with their terror and like the attack on the Olympics and all that stuff, I thought, what? How could behaving in this barbaric, horrible manner, targeting innocent people, how could that help your cause? It did. As a strategy, it works. Okay, well, guys, I don't know what to say. What will continue to happen is that mostly governments will continue to react stupidly, I think, to this stuff. You're going to see Europe. Jeez. I think the EU, it will be lucky if it hangs together throughout this. ISIS has managed to destabilize the European Union, which was already sort of tottering because of the financial difficulties of some of the states. But ISIS, amazingly, has destabilized Europe and its union, is like central focus of the United States presidential campaign. This is a long slog that we're in with these people. There's no doubt about it. But you can't let them push you around exactly as they intend. It's almost like they snap their fingers and we jump. How can you give them? I don't understand how the scaredy cats don't see that they're empowering the very people that they say they're going to take down. I don't get it. One of the saddest things I read today was a quote from two 20-year-olds on the Greek island of Lesbos. It's a husband and wife, 27 years old, 25 years old. They are in one of those godforsaken refugee camps. They're stuck. They got out of their country, ran for their lives, got out of their country, and now, of course, Europe won't let them in. They are literally in a nightmare, no man's land. And they know that every time ISIS acts like this, that these young, innocent people, will bear the brunt. And here's the quote from her. She told a reporter, "We are refugees. We're not terrorists." And then her young husband said, "We are ourselves running from these people." This is true. They're pawns in the game. They are meant to be pawns. Our job is to see them as terrorists, to see all Muslims now as terrorists, which is why the Republicans, Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, are just playing right into their hands. Unbelievable. If you ask those two people who's your enemy, they would say ISIS. And yet we look at them and see enemy. Amazing. Okay, so what did Ted Cruz say after the bombings in Brussels? He said I mean, we already know he's on record to carpet bomb. He said it's time for American law enforcement to patrol and secure Muslim neighborhoods before they become radicalized. Oh, Ted, now there's a really good idea. There's a really good idea. You see how well sort of focusing on one group of people, singling them out to live under sort of a police state, constant vigilance. You see how well that's worked in regard to like Americans of African American descent. You see how that builds real trust between the people in the community and the police and the government. If you were to start patrols, if you were to start watching Muslim Americans, their mosques, their schools, that would do exactly what ISIS wants you to do. It would tell them they're not us, and it would tell them they're under suspicion, and it would tell them that we don't like them, and it would tell them that, geez, ISIS is probably right. It would help recruit. What is it about these idiots that they don't understand that? Is it conceivable they do, but they know it's a little too sophisticated a reality to explain to people, and it's easier just to ratchet up the fear, demagogue the issue, and be done with it? Ted Cruz is supposed to be a smart guy. Donald Trump tells us he has a great brain, so he must be smart too. Cruz also criticized Obama for remaining in Cuba instead of responding to security concerns in Belgium. What? Yeah, so he's not president of the world? There's not somebody else who's supposed to deal with security concerns in Belgium? He doesn't have something sort of important going with trying to get rid of the last vestiges of the Cold War in our hemisphere by finally warming things up with Cuba? I mean, that's not something that might be sort of important to us, too? And in this day and age, a president can't, by virtue of even the telephone, sort of be in touch and handle things happening in other places? What is the difference of him being in Washington or being in Havana? He doesn't have access to the same information. What the hell are they talking about? We are refugees. We are not terrorists. Those poor people. See how lucky we are? Think of people's lives. Think of what people are living. Think of people and with their children, with young children, sitting in some dump of a tent, cold, wet, nowhere to go. You go home, you're dead. You want to go this way, and the door is shut. And there are people who want to be president of this country who would tar every Muslim in this world as a terrorist, as a threat of some sort. Well, we don't know. We don't know. They're a threat. Over 1 billion people. Maybe your doctor. A lot of the docs are Muslims now, right? Maybe the engineer who's working over at PPG. Maybe, the Muslims in this country tend to be highly educated and actually very professional. Maybe terrorists? I don't think so. Okay, so the Anti-Defamation League, which is all about watching hate, keeping an eye on it. It started out as a Jewish organization that was really watching anti-Semitism in the country. It now watches all hate. The CEO of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt, issued a statement after Brussels that targeted Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, especially Cruz and his call for literally sending police into Muslim neighborhoods to surveil them. The ADL says it is an irrational approach that harkens back to the fear and bigotry that has led to many a dark and tragic chapter in history. And then it took the Anti-Defamation League, not Ted Cruz, who wants to be the president, or Donald Trump, who wants to be the president, and who, by the way, are supported by most Republicans. The overwhelming majority of Muslims in America are law-abiding people who are as outraged by this terrorism as Americans of every other faith. Sweeping generalizations about them can serve only to foment discrimination, which leads to hate crimes against innocent Americans. Furthermore, our law enforcement agencies need the cooperation of Muslim communities and their leaders to combat this threat. Ordering special patrols of Muslim neighborhoods will just create an adversarial relationship between law enforcement and those communities, making those communities feel vulnerable, fearful, and less willing to help. And then the ADL adds this, a sort of reminder to these Republicans. Reminds them of the bedrock of what this country they want to lead was founded upon. The approach that a Ted Cruz suggests or a Donald Trump suggests is contrary to the principles of individual rights, equality, justice, and religious freedom on which this nation was founded. Period. These guys think they're patriots? They are the very definition of un-American. Every knee-jerk response they have flies in the face of these bedrock principles. And this effort to demonize all Muslims is as basic an affront to our ideals as anything you can think of. I don't understand what is the disconnect in these people's heads? Help me here. What is the disconnect that they can feel themselves to be true lovers of this nation, true patriots? They think that. They absolutely fervently think that. And then hold these views that just collide with everything that the founders set forth. How does that not create some dissonance in their hard heads? Strange to me. So anyway, speaking of these nitwits, Donald Trump has finally, did you see that? Finally released some of the names of the brain trust. He says, don't worry, I know I'm a businessman and I don't have a government background, but if I get in office, I'll surround myself with, brilliant people. There'll be no problem there. So did you see the list of the brilliant people he's got advising him on foreign policy? Did you see it? Okay, he did put out 5 names. I think these 5, yeah. Joseph Schmitz, General Keith Kellogg, Carter Page, George Papadopoulos, and Waleed Ferris. Well, as soon as he finally gave some names, and he gave these names in a conversation with the Washington Post editorial board. Excuse me, we got a call. Hello.
Yes, Clarence from Canonsburg.
Yes, Clarence.
Was your question rhetorical about how these people can hold the 2 different beliefs?
No, I mean, I said help me because I don't understand that level of intellectual hypocrisy. I just don't get it.
I think you're coming from it from Lynn Cullen point of view. You're projecting yourself onto them. You have one idea of America, and they have another one. They're patriots if they support, like, white America, take our country backwards, that kind of thing. Anything that goes against that belief is unpatriotic. They just have they have a different opinion of what patriotic is.
Well, what do they think they meant, that the founders meant about, the freedom to have whatever religion you want? And what do they think that is?
They think
that's only Christians?
These are the Christians. This is a Christian nation. You know what they say. This is a Christian nation. It was founded on Christian principles and all this kind of stuff. Doesn't matter what that says. What the actual words are. They pick and choose whatever words fit their belief.
I mean, it's sort of like I was thinking too about like this refusal on the part of the Republicans in Congress to have anything to do with the president's Supreme Court nominee, even though he's somebody who could have been nominated by a Republican president. I mean, he's totally no raging liberal, absolutely not. And it was pointed out that the guy who died, who created the opening, one Antonin Scalia, was what was called an originalist, in that he believed in taking the Constitution at its word, right?
Yes.
And the Constitution is so clear that the president nominates somebody and the Senate then what is it? Advises and consents,
yeah.
or not.
Yeah.
And Scalia would say, just as John Roberts apparently said a few months ago, hey, the job is quite clear. It's been and has been followed throughout our nation's history.
So
do your job.
What you got to try to put yourself in their mind.
I think I'm an empath, and I can't do it. I can't put my head. I can't.
That's funny because people always call me an empath. I can't do it. What's the more important thing to them is to try to get another conservative justice. To not, that's more important than the Constitution, is to have their way. It's almost childlike, baby. No, I'm not going to do it. I don't care what mommy says.
Well, it is. It's often childish.
Exactly.
Their behavior. I mean, look at Cruz and Trump, and childish is exactly the adjective that applies so often. McConnell. It's all this. If I can't get my way, it's mind blowing, and they don't see that they are part and parcel of the reason that Americans are now wanting to take their party down by getting behind Donald Trump?
Yeah. Like I said, you're almost. I'm not even saying you're thinking like an adult. and think about it. They always talk about Donald Trump can say anything he wants, lie, twist his own words, talks in simple terms, and people like it. He comes off as like a strong leader, a father figure, somebody who's going to take. These are children.
Well, I got to tell you though, I don't know about your father. My father bears no resemblance to Donald Trump. He was a rational man. He was a strong man, but he wasn't what these guys think of as a father.
My father for absolute resemblance to Donald Trump.
Oh, okay. But I mean that kind of
a bunch of kids.
Okay.
Had no sense, but you get the gist of it.
Yes.
Yeah. You get the gist of the idea.
But this idea that being a man is about being some blustering macho jerk, how is that a man?
Don't ask me. But there was I think his name is Jonathan Haidt. He wrote a good article on why people vote Republicans, and basically I kind of narrowed it, simplified it, but it's basically that they like order. They like
authoritarian. They do like
authoritarian figure.
They want a big daddy. They do. Yeah. They want this tough, stern daddy who protects them.
Yeah.
And they like rules being set down, and they like everything in their place, and they're scared of anything changing. I guess all that's true. Yeah. And it's a mindset. I mean, I myself am the absolute opposite of that.
Yeah, me too.
You too.
And that's one of those things where, after reading the article and learning that, everybody projects. And I've been projecting myself onto people all my life.
Yeah.
But once reading that, and that was a while ago, probably like in 2008, I said, oh, okay. Literally, our brains are wired differently.
Right.
Literally.
Must be.
You can try all you want, try different techniques, but there's really nothing you can do.
So when I say, why are people so afraid, it's because a lot of people their brains are wired obviously differently than mine.
Literally wired differently.
Literally.
Literally, their connections and their neurons and all that stuff are different than yours, and it's very difficult. Very difficult. It can be done, but it's very difficult to do. And matter of fact, the liberals are more. What is it? Flexible and all that kind of stuff with their brain wiring.
They're a little more loosey-goosey, right? And they're more comfortable with change and chaos and whatever. Exactly. And people who tend to be Republican are not. They just aren't. They want order.
Thrive on chaos, and the unknown.
Well, that's how nothing creative ever happens in an art. I mean, if you know anything about art, I mean, you look at the art that comes out of despotic cultures, and you look at the art that came out of the Soviet Union, these and Nazi Germany, these sort of it's awful stuff. Yeah. It's art by the state. This is idealized versions of, and it's always God knows it ain't. It's. Yeah, idealistic vision of great humans serving the state. That's always sort of what it's about. There's no creativity in a controlled environment.
No, and that's why people like Hollywood. They say Hollywood and those liberals. Well, of course, those are the creative folks. The people in higher institutions of learning. They're the creative folks. Of course they're going to be liberal. Or they're going to be mostly liberal. It's just the way, the things are set up. And you'll find conservatives and, I don't know, jobs as engineers or something.
I was watching, I came upon on Sunday night a little bit of the Live on Fox, produced by Tyler Perry, The Passion. Are you aware of this thing?
I heard about it, but I didn't see it.
Oh my God! I came upon it, and there was Seal, and it was live, and he was singing. I think he was Pontius Pilate. I don't know, but he was singing some song, some normal, regular song. It was the weirdest thing I have ever seen in my life. And then, as they were, all of a sudden, this big cross comes in, carried by 1 million people. And then I thought, oh, wow, something big's going to happen here. And then Tyler Perry comes on and says something like, and, Jesus is set to be crucified, but essentially, but first this. And they went to a commercial. I mean, I don't know, it was something, I'm not quite right. It was like, I let out a howl, which brought my son running. And so I said, you got to see this. And we then saw a bunch of commercials, the likes of which we had never seen, because they were directed at the audience that would be watching this. And one of the commercials, I'm finally getting to what I wanted to say. One of the commercials was for a movie. It was a movie trailer, I think. And the movie was, help me here, the movie was God Is Not Dead 2. I think. And
wait, God is not dead.
Yeah, right. 2!
Sorry.
And no, 2, Roman numeral 2. And of course, both Sam said, you mean there's a God is not dead? What? That you mean there's a sequel to God? And it's true, there is. He said, who, where? We were just blown away by this thing. And they kept, in the middle of all this, they had people in the audience sobbing. And then they cut to commercials, but right before they, killed. And then Mary, in showing a lot of cleavage, is singing some song you could not believe this.
But here's the thing, with the woman weeping, it's updated. You know what I mean? You can't do the Ten Commandments with, I was going to say Burt Lancaster. What was that guy's name?
No, that was Charlton Heston.
Charlton Heston. And those kind of movies, that's not going to bring people in. You got to update it. So with some rap music, some good beats, Phil, and of course a commercial. It's time for a commercial break. That's hilarious.
It was beyond belief. It was beyond belief.
It would have been really cool if they had the commercial break for 3 days. 3 days of commercial break. And then Jesus rises again. Because that'd have been great. It's like, it's going on for 3 days. And then, of course, you got to give him some McDonald's, some McDonald's.
And Tyler Perry gets up there, and Sam kept saying, it's Tyler Perry! Couldn't believe it. He's up there and in lurid detail talking about crucifixion. And how these 7-inch nails are driven through the bone of the hand. And he went on and on and on, and they're showing people in the crowd, and they're sobbing. And I thought, this is,
But here's how my brain works.
Oh.
When you said it was Tyler Perry, first of all, I saw him as that, the female
Medea.
character.
You saw him as Medea.
I saw him as Medea.
Right, right.
And the 9-inch nails that he was driving were on the tips of his fingers. Very well painted. Honey, we're about to drive these nails through your fist. Right through the bone.
You know what? I mean, it's the phrase "you can't make this up" is absolutely built for these times.
I believe God Is Not Dead didn't have any kind of money-making things, and they're doing it too.
Well, I don't know. They go around. If somebody look it up for me, it's a movie. I mean, it's a sequel.
I remember it because I'm like a Daryl I'm the Daryl Dawkins. He's a basketball player. Richard Dawkins. Sam Harris, kind of listening. And, they talked about them big time on that. And, of course, they responded, and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't think it made, that it made it make a 2. But it doesn't matter. You have to counter Hollywood and all their liberal, secular, God-hating ideas with something.
It's just, it's mind-blowing to me. The whole, everything is just like, I'm walking through my life with my jaw dropped almost consistently now. See,
I think I told you I got interested in the Stoics, and I said I was an accidental Stoic because these are the things that I expect. The craziness, I expect this to happen. When somebody does something decent, that's when my jaw drops. Wow, I can't believe he did that good deed. Mm-hmm. That was a human being who did that. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm like just the opposite of that. I expect people to do terrible things.
All right.
All
wow.
Right.
Hey, thanks.
Okay. Have a good day.
Yes, you
right.
too.
All right.
Bye. Embrace the chaos. Embrace the chaos. So, back to Trump's brain trust. Listen to, okay, did you recognize any of those names? No, I didn't either. But it turns out what's so funny is that foreign policy experts, have been wondering for months now, who the hell is Trump talking to? Now, Trump has said he talks to himself. He literally has said that. Who do you talk to on foreign policy? I talk to myself. I got a big brain. I know lots of words. And yet he's been under a lot of pressure to come up with some names. So he came up with those names. And they said, it says here that Republican foreign policy establishment people saw this list, and the reaction was overwhelmingly universal. It can be summed up in one word. Who? They never heard of these people. Never heard of them. So they're all Googling these guys, trying to figure out who they are. And even on Google, they couldn't find much. They come up with these old, okay, so we finally, the reporters went trying to ascertain who these guys are. And the most prominent, the one that people might have known, is this Walid Faris, because he is often accused by Muslim civil rights groups as being an Islamophobe and fear-mongering and spreading fear about the fact that Sharia law is coming to America. Okay, so that's one of Trump's foreign policy advisors. Another I mentioned is a general, Keith Kellogg. And the New York Times reports there was no record of employment for Mr. Kellogg, a retired Army lieutenant general who did help run the Provisional Authority in Iraq from 2003 to 2004. Guys, how's your memory about Iraq 2003, 2004? Huh? How's your memory there? I mentioned chaos a little while ago. Throw in a few, incompetence. Okay, so this guy was part of that. Paul Bremer, remember that? And it says that this Kellogg guy, he most recently worked for a defense contractor, but the defense contractor has no information on his whereabouts. So retired General Kellogg is sort of missing in action. Then we come to a guy named Papadopoulos who lives in London, and he's an energy analyst. None of these men, when reached, and a lot of them weren't reachable, when they were reached, they all said the same thing. Listen to this. Not one of these guys has spoken to Donald Trump. I said I'm not scared. Here's what scares me. What scares me is that a whole bunch of my fellow Americans want Donald Trump, think Donald Trump would be a great president and keep them safe. Unbelievable. None of Trump's so-called advisors on foreign policy issues has ever spoken to him. That's a great gig. I wonder if they're getting paid. Seriously, that's a gig. Oh, was that it? Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Uh-oh. It looks like I'm a little short. time to read Yeats. I'm going to have this memorized. I am going to have this memorized by the end of this political season. I'm sorry, it's my new anthem. So, here we go. I have a call? Somebody doesn't want to hear Yeats? Hello?
Hey, Lynn, I'd ask how you were doing, but I think the right word is incredulous.
Well, yes.
Incredulously.
Yeah.
To be grammatically correct.
Incredulously, but you wonder why I'm still in. What comes after incredulous? Because I shouldn't be stuck in a rut in incredulity. I should have moved on to something else. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not certain. I'll have to research what the term for that state is.
Yeah, because we should be surprised. I know. Why is my jaw still on the ground? I mean, come on. I don't know. Is it acceptance? It's like the 5 stages of grief or something? Is that because acceptance is not where I want to be?
Before I get to my main point, I would like to address something that came up in passing. Was that this notion that Antonin Scalia was an quote originalist unquote?
Well, he said he was.
Yeah, I'm sure he did say that.
Well, he did. I mean, that
so
was his
what?
thing.
He wasn't exactly going strictly by the literal original language of the Constitution when he ruled on such issues as corporate personhood, or when he decided that the 14th Amendment could be used to halt the recount in Florida in the year 2000.
2000.
Without setting any sort of of legal precedent, even though that's what the Supreme Court is set up to do.
Yeah. Okay,
his originalism was unmitigated bullshit. It was just his smokescreen.
Okay, so then, I will, agree with that takedown. So
regarding the Syrian refugees, here's what it is. Look, everyone with a little bit of logic, which I guess leaves out a lot of the country, but considering our current
apparently, yes, right,
political situation,
yes, correct,
has to know that this ISIS claim that they've infiltrated the refugees is just utter nonsense. Look, it would be an absurd, wretched plan for a terrorist to infiltrate the refugees. Once you become a refugee, you're in a refugee camp. You have no arms. You're not in communication with anyone. You have no determination over your own fate. You don't get to choose which country you're relocated to or when. You can be in limbo for years. And of course, you're subject to much greater scrutiny. What people actually want who object to the relocation of the refugees is some assurance that none of them are bad people. That of the, let's say 10,000 or so that are being discussed to be resettled here, that none of them will ever become anti-Western, that none of them are criminals, that none of them are dangerous. And of course, that's impossible.
It's impossible. I mean, can you imagine if our forebears had to prove as they came through Ellis Island that they would never entertain, thoughts of insurrection or something? I mean, come on. Or were good people and never had gotten in trouble with the law. A lot of them were running from the authorities. Impossible. Impossible.
But I mean, that's what the fearful climate has bred. And look, I understand. I mean, if someone who was a refugee, does in the future, plant a bomb, go on, a shooting spree, whether it's related to terrorism or not, maybe they're just a rotten person.
Maybe they're like all those Americans who do that every 5 minutes.
Right. Then of course, I mean, fingers are going to be pointed. Politicians who voted in favor, will be castigated.
Mm-hmm. It's true. So, I mean, when a white American who's not an immigrant, becomes a mass murderer, That's never seen as terrorism in this country. You have to be brown and Muslim. Then it's terrorism.
Well, but the ironic thing that, as you said, is that when do we, if we're actually going to stop taking in refugees, political refugees, from a war zone, we're essentially allowing terrorists to dictate our foreign policy.
That's right. No, we're just playing into their hands. It's so obvious how stupid are. Can you imagine how they must be just beyond belief? Talk about incredulity.
Chortling,
no, ISIS must be incredulous at how stupid we are, how easily manipulated we
and
are.
all I can think of is that, countries in Europe are accepting these refugees in greater numbers than we've ever committed to.
Yes.
Canada,
Yes.
are much happier, in better shape, nicer relative to the North.
Yeah.
They're accepting 3 times the number that we've discussed.
And I
in this
understand
country.
Canadians, are still sleeping
just
at
like
night, too.
All the tough-talking Republicans,
Yeah.
all the he-men. I'm thinking,
I know.
you guys are chicken shit.
They're all chicken shits. It's so strange that they're seen as strong when they're so clearly made easily fearful and play right into the hands of the enemy. It is so. I just can't believe how stupid we are. And these medievalists are outthinking us, right? We're getting beaten by these medieval ISIS guys who do want to go back to 1100.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And
absolutely.
I absolutely do.
I don't have any problem
They're
saying
outthinking
that,
us.
when you look at the Middle East, Islam does have a problem. A big problem.
Oh, dear. And let me tell you something. That's what I was thinking last night. This is something I feel for all the Muslims who are, every time one of these things happens, but man, they've got to somehow. This is their fight more than anybody else's. They've got to fight this fight more. I don't know how, but they have to.
I mean,
it's a
at
civil
one time,
war.
I mean, look, I don't normally think a lot of Tom Friedman's views on globalization and foreign policy, but he said something once which did kind of resonate, which was that you've had reformations in Christianity and Judaism. We're kind of on Judaism / Christianity 2.0, 3.0, whatever you want to call it.
Some of us.
With the exception of some fringe.
No, some of us, because we both Christianity and Judaism have these. I would compare to these fundamentalist guys who go, or the originalists.
Oh, sure. I mean,
and they're strong.
No Christian leader who wanted to be taken seriously
would call for the, what?
Like stoning of, gay people should be stoned. I mean, they're at the point where they're trying to, their argument is, well, we shouldn't have to serve them wedding cakes. We should sell them wedding cakes, excuse me. I mean,
but Christians in Africa especially are definitely saying if we won't stone them maybe, but we will rip them apart limb from limb and kill them, and we'll put them in prison.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking primarily, I'm talking about the U.S., the Western world. I mean, just like Muslims in Turkey. I mean, or I'm trying to think of unfortunately, not a lot of first world Muslim countries come to mind. And that's part of the problem.
Well, Malaysia,
sure.
Indonesia,
Sri Lanka,
whatever. Yeah, but somehow all these good Muslims have to. It's scary to take these guys on. I mean, I understand it would take incredible courage to take these killers on, these lunatics, but. Ultimately, this drops back, if you keep following the string, to a civil war within a world religion and wreaking havoc on everybody. I don't know. Hey, I gotta go, but thank you for your call.
Take care, Lynn.
Bye. Bye. Pittsburgh Girl writes, I agree with most of what Clarence says, but I have to take exception with his comment about liberal Hollywood. Excuse me. As someone who works in Hollywood, this is such a misconception. You might have some of the A-listers, such as George Clooney, Ben Affleck, and Brad and Angie, who are liberals. But Hollywood, I'll throw some more in. I mean, I can come up with a million more, right? Sean Penn, Barbra Streisand, the whole day. I mean, there's a lot of big liberals out there, no doubt about it. But Hollywood is solely owned by the corporations of Comcast, Disney, News Corp, Sony, Viacom, and AOL Time Warner. That's it. And these are most assuredly not liberals. That's true. None of those corporations are liberals. Furthermore, the massive changes that have taken place in this business are in lockstep with a conservative agenda. I'd like to hear more about that last line. I really would. So I will invite you to tell me more about that. Because the face of Hollywood that we see, all of these, as you say, A-listers, who are liberals and big stars, you're right. They are not managing the corporations that own the entire industry, that own the apparatus. Rupert Murdoch, for one. I don't think he's a liberal. Caller, hello? Quickly.
Hello, Lynn. I'll make this quick.
Yeah, do.
Hey, in any sport, the highest score wins, right? But in the Republican Party, it seems like the man that has the most votes doesn't win.
Well, because their rules say...
Wait.
Wait. No,
I mean,
that's not
I don't see
corrupt.
how they deny them of the nomination. They're going to lose anyway, but they're going to lose one way or the
Okay.
other. Third party, pick one of the other people for nominee.
You're voting for Trump.
No, I'm voting for Clinton. No, I want
How?
him in there.
Those are the rules. I mean, the rules are you have to
I'm
reach
afraid
1,000.
Ted Cruz, if they nominate him, he might win.
Yeah, I'm afraid of Cruz, too.
I'm afraid I'd rather
Right.
take Trump over Cruz. He's a smart man. I mean, he can really... listening to him, I don't like him. I don't like anything he stands for, but I'm more afraid of Ted Cruz.
Well, I agree. In some ways, I agree. I mean, I don't have any doubt that the American people will reject Donald Trump in a general election.
Oh, I think so.
But I'm not sure they'd do the same with Ted Cruz, especially since they just can't fall in love with Hillary Clinton. And a lot of people just actively hate her. And someday I want to talk more about the fact that young people really don't like her. Young people who are, they like Bernie, but they just really don't like her or him, Bill or Hillary. Their sense of them is that they're slimes.
I'm not too fond of either
No,
one of them
I know, but these are realities, political realities, that we all got to live with, which is why I so want Trump to get
that's
this
what I
nomination. Okay.
That's been my ultimate goal for this, so he can lose.
I know. I agree.
Screw the Republicans.
All
That's
right.
my whole ultimate goal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
And what rough beast its hour come round at last slouches toward Bethlehem to be born. That is rhetorical. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.